Simon, I got into a taxi last night. The taxi driver was at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday. He was a Tottenham fan and he was still trying to come to terms with what he witnessed. Tottenham seemingly in the driving seat, and then Chelsea, of course, did a job on them and left with all 3 points. Speaking to Spanish outlet Telemundo, after the Chelsea defeat, Spurs defender Crisitan Romero was asked, do you feel that while other teams have made a big investment, like Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, and continue to strengthen their squads to try and compete for titles, you have fallen behind in this regard? Well, he was interesting with his reply, Romero. The truth is, he says, I would say no comment, but City competes for the title every year. You see how Liverpool strengthens its squad. Chelsea strengthens its squad. Strengthens again. And now they are seeing results. In other words, we don't appear to be doing that. He says, hopefully they realise who the true responsible ones are and we move forward, because it's a beautiful club, Tottenham, with the structure it has, but it could easily be competing for the title every year. I think he's pointing the finger, is he not, at the boardroom, where other boardrooms make the decision to strengthen. Romero's having a tilt at Daniel and the rest, saying they could do well to do the same.
Yeah, perhaps he should concentrate on what he's doing and his performances, because whilst he's a very good player, he in previous times at Spurs, I don't think he's been at the optimum level of his game. At certain times, I thought he was dialing in performances. Listen, you would expect me to say this as a former owner. Your employee, shut your trap, get on with your job. There's plenty of money being spent at Tottenham, but if I do that, I'm supporting Daniel Levy. If you want to win the league, if Tottenham's aim is to win the league, they've got to match Man City's spend. They've got to match Liverpool spend. They've got to match Man United spend. That's not the ownership model that they have. They have an ownership model that spends lots of money, not as much as the people would like them to do, and not enough to win the league.
But who spended Leicester match when they did it? Albeit it was nothing we saw coming.
Yeah, so that's one team you can point to in 32 years of the Premier League. Other than that, every other Premier League has been pretty much bought by the team that's got the most money, from Jack Walker's to Manchester United to Chelsea to Manchester City. So Tottenham don't have that model, whether it was Alan Sugar that started the model in 1991 when the Premier League was just about to be founded, and he ran it in a certain way through to Daniel Levy. Tottenham doesn't have the economic returns or the economic investment strategy that Chelsea and Man City have had. Liverpool is a legacy football club, a heritage football club that's built itself out of many, many years of success. So there was an argument to say that should they do that? Yeah, that's not the ownership model they've got. And I'm not entirely sure that they're set up or expecting to win the Premier League. They certainly shouldn't be sitting with an empty trophy cabinet. They certainly shouldn't be sitting with 23 years of Daniel being in charge of Tottenham Hotspur with one League Cup. And they've got a lot of pressure coming on them for that, and Postecoglou. But I'm not entirely sure what he's blaming. He's basically blaming. So I'm assuming that getting beat by a promoted side like Ipswich and getting beaten by a completely out of sorted side like Crystal Palace is the responsibility of the boardroom.
Well, he says the finger, basically
so that's the responsibility of the players.
But he's saying the finger's never really pointed at the boardroom, it's always pointed at them. He says it's always the same. It's point first the players, then the coaching staff. It's always the same people that are seemingly responsible.
But that's not true. The finger is endlessly pointed at the boardroom.
I've got to say, quite a lot of Tottenham fans getting in touch on this very topic saying Romero needs to keep stum on this.
Well, he should do.
Eddie, the Tottenham fan, Liverpool haven't strengthened this year, so it's nonsense. Romero needs to stay with his man at the next corner kick, says Eddie, the Tottenham fan. Maybe Romero's just thinking, like, he's gone with it. No doubt he'll come back and tell us that the interview was a case of him being lost in translation.
Look, the responsibility for running a football club successfully is ultimately that of the owners. If you give people reasonable amounts of money, do I expect Tottenham Hotspur, with the money that they spend, to win the Premier League? No, because they've got to try and match those that are prepared to spend more money and have now got bigger turnovers and bigger sense of achievements. But do I expect Tottenham to have won something in that period of time? Absolutely. So I'm not entirely sure what point Romero thinks he's making. Tottenham are not set up the way Man City are. If they change the ownership model and they and do what Chelsea and Man City have done, which is spend inordinate amounts of money to be successful, there is an element of responsibility on the ownership. Of course there is. There's also an element of responsibility on the manager and the players. And so I think endlessly owners are pointed at. They're endlessly pointed at. So I don't know what the players are talking about.
Maybe Romero should have thought twice before he gave that interview to Telemundo.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.